Hi, everyone. Continuing through the Magical Mystery Tour album in this Beatles complete series, I am today revisiting Blue Jay Way. I have already done my first listen, and first we'll watch that. Unfortunately for YouTube, we can't put it there, but the rest of you can see it, and then we'll dig in and have some fun, break it apart, explore it a bit more deeply. The official genre classification is, not surprisingly, psychedelic rock. I begin to get a feel for that genre or subgenre style. And of course, this piece was written by George Harrison. In the first week of August 1976, George, his wife Patty, Neil Aspinall, and Alex Mardis, aka Magic Alex, flew from Britain to California, the primary reason being to attend Ravi Shankar's Hollywood Bowl concert on August 4th of that year. While there, Patty's sister Jenny Boyd, who was living in Haight-Ashbury, encouraged them to visit San Francisco to witness the hippie scene they had all heard about, an invitation they accepted, which resulted in George's condemnation of them as bums. What a surprise. I mean, George is the one who's all into this Indian spirituality exploration more than the rest of them, right? And he's now looking at the San Francisco hippie scene and saying they're all bums. That's a bit of a surprise to me. Accommodations were arranged for them in advance. These explained in Steve Turner's book, A Hard Day's Right. On arrival in Los Angeles on August 1st, they were driven to a small rented cottage with a pool on Blue Jay Way, a street high in the Hollywood Hills above Sunset Boulevard. Derek Taylor explains the events of that day, saying, "They'd ring and say, 'We're here.' So I asked them, 'Where are you?' 'In Blue Jay Way,' he replied. 'Where's that?' I asked. 'I don't know,' he replied. 'Somewhere up in the hills.' So I said to him, 'Never mind, I'll ask a policeman. There are plenty of them around.' So I set out to find them. And while he was waiting with jet lag and Patty," love the way he says, "waiting with jet lag and Patty," as if there are two friends waiting with him, two people waiting with him, he sat down at an organ in the hall and started, "Please don't be long. My friends have lost their way. There's a fog upon L.A. They'll ask a policeman on the beat. There's so many there to meet." George himself explained in 1968. Derek Taylor got held up. He rang to say he'd be late. I told him on the phone that the house was in Blue Jay Way, and he said he could find it okay. He could always ask a cop. So I waited and waited. I felt really knackered with the flight, but I didn't want to go to sleep until he came. There was a fog, and it got later and later. To keep myself awake, just as a joke to pass the time while I waited, I wrote a song about waiting for him in Blue Jay Way. There was a little Hammond organ in the corner of this house, which I hadn't noticed until then. So I messed around on it, and the song came. It's so interesting reading about this perfectly ordinary set of life circumstances, making a trip, struggling to meet up with a friend, delays, confusion, don't know where you are, you're in a strange part of the world you're unfamiliar with. But there are things that stand out to me as being used to be far more normal and aren't anymore. Like saying, there was a little Hammond organ in the corner of this house, which I hadn't noticed until then. Wait a minute. A Hammond organ just happens to be in the house you rented. Well, okay, sure, this is in Hollywood area, so it's perhaps a better off than some places you might see. But we know, and I know as a musician, as a pianist, as someone who has piano technicians in my family history, how practically every home used to have either a piano or an organ. And so reading this is kind of like just a splash of cool water in the face of, oh, wow, I remember that that's how it used to be. Well, it's not like that anymore, is it? But it's really refreshing to read, there just happened to be a Hammond organ in the house we rented. As if it's, almost every house has an organ or a piano. Derek Taylor continues, By the time I had reached them, the song was virtually intact. Of course, at the time, I felt very bad because here were these two wretchedly jet-lagged people, and I was about 2 hours late to meet them. But here indeed was a song that would turn up on Magical Mystery Tour. He's kind of saying, I felt bad, but I don't feel bad anymore. Well, that's a fun bit of background to this, I almost said to this story, to this song. And I love the incredible detail of how much we know about its origins. Now let's go to the piece itself and see what we can discover in it. It's such a simple piece in so many ways, isn't it? I mean, even this little motif, da 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 da, which I'll get to in a minute. But there are several things that I notice right away as the piece begins, which really set the scene incredibly well. And now, knowing the background, it's even better. So, first of all, this drone, a sort of pedal tone, which the organ is doing, but it happens in a way, well, of course, as we know, Hammond organs have this sort of pulsating quality to them. It also reminds me, just the choice of tone and texture there, reminds me of a glass harmonica. And if you don't know what that is, a glass harmonica is a special instrument which there is a mechanized version of it. Was it Ben Franklin that invented it? Do I have the name right? Anyway, a bunch of glass discs on a wheel, and they are pitched, so you can just set your wet fingers on the discs and play as the wheel spins. But if you've ever taken your wet finger, and run it around the edge of a wine glass, that's the principle, and that's the idea of the mechanized version, is just to make it easier to play more complex pieces as a single person. But I have even seen performances, I've even attended concerts of glass harmonica players where they have tables of wine glasses set out and filled with specific amounts of water to tune them. And they play transcriptions and arrangements of classical music. And it has this really magical quality. I've also heard folk music played that way. In fact, I have a CD which has flute and violin and glass harmonica. Anyway, it's a really magical sound, a sort of mysterious, ethereal sound. And when I hear this organ at the beginning, although I've always said that the glass harmonica tends to imitate the organ tone, now as I'm listening to this, I hear in this organ tone a sort of reminder of the glass harmonica sound, meaning there's a special tonal color, texture, timbre, which was selected for this bit here. This, I can just see a finger running around a wine glass here. And in that mix of just gradually developing harmonic bass, there's this very organ-like quality of somewhere in that wash of sound. You hear da 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 da, this hidden melody. It's placed so gently. You have to really work to pick it out. And then that cello. What do I think of that cello? It's kind of jarring. It's kind of super strong after all of this sort of impressionistic type opening. And so mournful the way it comes in. Ooh. It almost feels too much to me. And then Harrison's voice. There's a fog upon LA. And then we're back into this foggy, hazy, misty, impressionistic, dizzy, jet lag induced delirium. I mean, it fits so well knowing the background of the story. So that is how just these simple things start the piece. And I like the way that it sets us up so picturesquely, so evocatively. It's as if I can look out and see the city blanketed in fog. And maybe it's towards evening. And my internal clock is all messed up. So, I don't even know if I'm right side up or upside down. But I love the way that the music itself does this and creates this image, expands on what is found in the text. So it starts, there's a fog upon LA, and the drums come in and they're keeping the beat. But as the drum is keeping that beat and marking that beat, I hear that, and my friends have lost their way. It's as if it can't quite keep up with the beat. He's struggling, or he's intentionally, of course, because he's portraying the image of someone who just can't find any bounce in their step. They feel like, oh, I can hardly make myself move. I can hardly keep my eyelids open because I'm falling asleep here. Peach is being slurred a little bit. We'll be over soon, they said. And you can hear him falling asleep as he sings. I mean, it's so evocative and descriptive and such an illustration, an image of this idea. I also have to mention that it's pretty obvious that he's deep into the Indian music aesthetic, because we have this, I talked about this drone at the beginning, right? We have this drone, which is just the C, and this is what we're building on. And as we go through here, we notice, even if you're not a music reader, luckily for us, we have the chords already written in. If I make space for us to see them, you see that pretty much anything here in these chord names starts with C. In other words, all of these are a variant, are some form of the C-based harmony. Even as we go on, everything, C diminished, C flat 5, C diminished, C6, C diminished 7, everything goes on like that. And that is, I think, certainly drawn from his inspiration and his attraction to the Indian style music, where so much of it is based on drones and static harmony and a whole different musical, theoretical design structure than what we have in Western music. But having said that, that's about the only thing that I find in here that's really turning towards Indian music, because the rest of it, even the design of it, is really Western. Let's look at, we have this little motif, which is that's what we're using. And instead of doing some Indian style variant of it, he used it in a very Western manner. Repeats it, and then repeats it again. And it becomes developed or explored in this Western manner of taking that motif and reshaping it, restating it, placing it, next thing we have is a little bit higher. Same idea though. And we arrive at G. There's a sense of chord progression here even though we're locked in a static C-based drone harmonic shape. All of that is to say, there's a lot of really great musical design put into this piece. And it might feel like, oh, he just sat down and poked out a few notes in his sleep haze. But the reality is, this is an experienced musician who is improvising and exploring his feelings in this moment. And so all of this comes out and manifests itself in a really solidly designed piece of music, even being created when he can hardly stand on his feet and he's exhausted after a flight. And it's fun to notice these things, isn't it? The same verse. Well, we haven't really explored this refrain much, so let's do that as well, because all right, so it starts, please don't be long. Isn't it interesting the contrast we have in pacing? Da 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 dum, kind of bunched together and then resting. Da 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 dum, almost as if there's this sort of burst of activity and trying to move and then sitting back down on the couch to wait. When we get to the refrain, it changes. Please don't be long. Such a pleading line. Please don't be long. And then I love what he does. Please don't you be very long. In this, I can't help but notice. This is fun. Okay, bear with me here. It's a little bit of poetic and rhythmic analysis. But if we look, beat 1 has please. The next big beat has don't. So we have 2 divisions of this bar. Please and don't. Same thing here. Be long. Please don't be long. Now, when he gives us the variant here, please don't you be very long. Okay, we have to accept a little bit of adjustment here, but still this is in the first half of the bar, so that's where please belongs. And don't arrives exactly on time. Be arrives in the same place, and long arrives in the same place. Why do I point that out? It's so square and consistent and measured. In this second iteration, it's the same measurement, the same squareness of it, but it sounds anything but square. He's fooled us with what he's done by inserting these extra words in between. Please don't be long. Please don't you be very long. But those same 4 words arrive in the same location. I love the way that it fools us, and we're just like floating, gliding aimlessly without any sense of orientation. And it feels nothing like that measured predictability and squareness. Because everything seems so fluid, so flexible. Well, here, please don't be long. This third iteration of it is compressed and condensed. So now, instead of having please don't be long all fit into 2 bars, now it all fits into 1. Please don't be long, right here. They still belong in the first half and the second half. So it's a condensation of it, but it's more than just compressing into a square. What he's done is he's compressed it even a little bit further and put a little space on each side, because we start with a rest and we end earlier than the final beat. It's a triplet scenario. which means that this is surprising us very rhythmically, deliberately, and disorienting us, so that even though it follows the same measurement rules, squareness rules in placement and all, we have no sense of that as we're hearing it flow by. Or I may be asleep. And it's as if we see his head dropping as he sings, sleep. And that's it. He's gone. Which is pretty much the same thing repeated a little bit. Well, we'll get to that in a minute. Another thing to notice about this, or I may be asleep. Well, you can feel that there is a significant difference in feel, if I can use my words that way, between the refrain and the verse. Is it the voice? No, the voice still keeps this mostly hazy, foggy sound. Is it the instrumental backing? It's pretty much the same. We have the same organ drone. We have drums happening. We have this chorus fading in and out. Is it the harmony? The harmony is pretty much the same. What is it that makes it feel so markedly different? Is it the tempo change? Well, there is a tempo change, and that helps, but it's not enough to really give such a distinction between the verse and the chorus. And this transition is a great place to notice it, because we're in the chorus here. Back into a different feel. What is it? There's a clue. And the clue is this little, can we call it a drum fill? All right. It is the drums. It is not just the drums. It is the rhythm the drums are doing. We have this in the verse, a very straight and square. Get the difference? One is dum bum 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 dum da dum da dum da dum da dum. It's the difference between straight and swing rhythm. One is a more of an evenly divided 1-2 division. The other is a sort of loose triplet. 1, a 2, a 1, a 2, a 1, a 2, and the division is long, short, long instead of even. And because the drums are so maybe I should say non-assertive. Should I say, no, I won't say non-assertive, but they're not really invasive, right? They're just there. It doesn't maybe jump out at us immediately as to what is making this incredible contrast between the verse and the refrain. But I'm convinced that the drums are the key. And so, in a piece that is George Harrison, here we have Ringo doing something which is crucial to keeping the interest of the piece, because if we have practically zero harmonic development, if we have this melody which just floats and glides and doesn't really carry us any particular place, we have this feeling of just in this haze of fatigue and lack of sleep. What is it that's going to hold the listener's attention through this, and how are we going to get through this? Thankfully, Ringo says, I got you. I got the drums, and I'm going to do something to shift it so that you can feel somewhere in this piece a contrast. Because in music, in order to really hold our attention for any length of time, there has to be something to grab us. And if we don't want it to be a compelling harmonic or melodically driven piece, well, something has to happen somewhere. And I feel like these drums are a pretty critical part of the entire success of the piece of music. And at the same time, there's this more active movement in the percussion and the drums. It's as if the verse is me sitting and waiting, barely keeping awake. And the refrain is more an expression of the desire to meet this person. Why am I keeping myself awake? It's because there's somebody I want to see, I want to meet. And I'm in no shape to meet them, but I want to meet them. I don't want to go to sleep until I meet this person. I want to get together with them. So there's this kind of getting up and pacing the room. Please don't be long. Please don't you be very long. I'm not sure how much I can hold myself up any longer, but I want to be here when you're here. And so I'm doing my best to keep myself awake. To me, that's what the refrain is expressing. Whereas the verse is, oh, I just can't do this anymore. I'm falling asleep. and I love that change in sort of emotional state as well, or maybe not change, but different perspective on this whole scenario. Towards the end, I feel like the cello fits in a little better. But as I'm listening to the piece, I have to say that I don't feel like this cello really contributes anything meaningful to the piece. And even from the beginning, it feels like, I don't know, I'd almost rather have it without the cello. And maybe that's heresy to those of you who like this piece. I'll be interested to hear your thoughts on it. But to me, it feels more like an invasion, a distraction from what's being set up and expressed here. Almost like he said, oh, this, the song, She's Leaving Home worked incredibly well with strings and cello. Let's put some in here. But I feel like there wasn't really a strong vision for it. I could be wrong, but that's me and my personal taste and response to this. That's how I feel about it, at least at this point. Maybe I'll learn to love it along the way, but at the moment I feel like, I could actually do without the cello, believe it or not. This part right here, I like that. Don't be long, don't be long. It's as if, I don't know. I feel like it's kind of, my best description would be a little 5 or 6 year old waiting, and you're telling them, just patience, wait. Don't be long, don't be long, don't be long. They're kind of dancing and wiggling a little bit, and they're tired, and they're just trying to keep themselves up. There's that sort of 6-year-old child spirit in that chorus when it sings there. This rhythmic tension that I'm noticing in the piece, the contrast between straight and swung rhythm, and the way that it's used, kind of, as well as the tempo changes or the struggle to keep a tempo that I hear in the melody, and the change in tempo between verse and refrain. All of those things have to do with timing, don't they? Timing. And this is about a struggle to get the timing right, a sort of conflict in timing, or maybe not conflict, but a disconnect in timing. And so I find myself really attracted to that idea that the timing, the use of timing techniques in this piece are beautifully illustrative of the real life timing difficulties of this situation that inspired it. And I think it's something that we can all relate to at some point or other in our lives, whether we were waiting for someone at the airport and the plane was delayed, or whether we are going somewhere by car, by plane, by train, whatever, and we have an ambition to be somewhere, and somehow the plans get messed up, and there's this feeling of kind of deflation and weariness and the best laid plans, right? As well as what's expressed in here, the desire to meet, to be with someone. To me, that's why I find myself moving towards the idea of either something similar to this. You know, you plan a meeting with friends, you invite some friends over to your house for dinner, and then they get stuck in traffic, whatever. You end up delaying the dinner. Everything just gets all messed up. Or the idea of a plane delay at the airport, all of that. I feel it in this piece. And that's what attracts me to it. Would I call this a really great composition if I were to analyze it? I don't know, but I'm not approaching it that way right now. I am approaching it as, how well does it express what it set out to express? And I find that it does an incredibly good job. Would I find myself listening to this very often? I don't know, because to me this is a very specific experience which doesn't really fit into most of my everyday life experiences. It's more of a every once in a while thing. And it's less about something that takes me somewhere or interests me on a daily basis, and more about how incredibly well it portrays this specific experience. So I don't know if I would find this, I can't say I find this a really catchy piece. I can't say that I find it something that I would be driving around and say, hey, I want to turn on the radio and hear Please Don't Be Long just for fun. I don't know if I would do that. But at the same time, I have to say, in its own way, it's an incredibly great piece of music because it captures the image, the essence, the experience that it set out to do. And it does it so incredibly well, so that I find myself relating to it and enjoying, kind of, if we can enjoy reliving an experience like that, I find myself enjoying it in this piece. So that's how I feel about Blue Jay Way. This is my second time really digging in and exploring it. A lot of fun. One more little comment as I'm listening to it and comparing to my classical background. I have to say that I'm reminded of an Armenian American composer, Alan Hovhannes, who actually wrote quite a bit of music for the harp. So, you know, and maybe that's one reason it sends me that direction. But he also has this sort of harmonic approach of fairly spare use of harmonic direction in a lot of his music, and this playing around with rhythmic variants. And so, you know, if you want to explore a classical piece, you could try listening to the Hovhannes Nocturne for Harp or something like that, just for fun, and see, do you hear some similarities? I'm not saying they sound the same. Please don't go with that expectation. Well, that was a lot of fun. So that is Blue Jay Way. And coming up next, we will continue the Magical Mystery Tour deep dive into this album. I'll see you then.